The doctor's lips move fast, his eyes tighter than the rubber gloves on his hands. The room hums with machines and fluorescent light, but there is no sound from the tiny boy on the table. A nurse rubs his back, another checks the monitor, and for one stretched, aching moment, everyone in the room is waiting for a cry that never comes. Sang Park stands a few feet away, suit jacket still on, rainwater dripping from the cuffs. He does not step closer. He does not reach for the child. His gaze stays locked on the still chest, the open mouth, the empty air. Yoon lies on the bed, sweat on her forehead, fingers clawing at the sheet as she watches their son's face. Her lips tremble as she whispers his name, but the boy just blinks, eyes wide, taking in a world that gives him everything but sound. A nurse finally looks up, and whatever she says makes Yoon's hand fly to her mouth. Sang's jaw tightens. He turns his head, just slightly, like he refuses to let the words touch him. The doctor starts to explain, pointing to charts, moving his hands, but Sang's gaze drifts back to the boy. His expression hardens into something flat and cold, as if a door inside him just slammed shut. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Yoon reaches out toward the tiny fingers, and the child curls his hand around the edge of the blanket. Her voice is raw as she says something to Sang, something that sounds like a promise, but he only answers with a stare that cuts straight through the boy. Outside, thunder rolls over Chicago, and inside that bright, crowded room, a father takes one step back from the bed, already judging a son who has not made a sound, yet. The doctor hesitates, then lowers his voice, forcing Sang to lean in to hear the final word that changes everything about who this boy will ever be. The first time Jean notices the difference, he is 5 and standing in a long hallway lined with dark wood and old paintings. A glass slips from a maid's hand at the far end and explodes on the floor, but all he sees is her mouth open and everyone else jumping. The shards scatter, the maid bows, lips moving fast in apology, and Jean just stares at the way their bodies jolt to a noise he cannot feel. Sang watches from the staircase, one hand on the railing, the other in his pocket. His eyes never soften when they land on the boy. Tutors come and go, bringing flashcards, books, and pointed patients. They teach Jean to read lips, to follow shapes and patterns. He learns quickly, eyes sharp, catching words before they fully form. When grown men murmur in the next room, thinking they are safe, Jean stands in a doorway and reads every promise, every threat, every lie straight off their mouths. In the evenings, Yoon sits with him at a low table, sketchbooks spread out. Jin's small hands move fast across the page, drawing scenes from memory, faces, doorways, cars, the exact angle of a gun tucked under a jacket. Yoon smiles at his detail, tracing the lines with gentle fingers, but when Sang passes by and sees a familiar tattoo perfectly captured in ink, his face tightens. The boy is quiet, but his eyes are gathering everything. Sometimes, Sang brings him to the back office above one of his clubs, forcing him to sit in the corner while men in expensive coats lean over the desk. Jin's feet dangle off the chair, his eyes tracking every mouth. When a man lies, Jean sees it in the way his lips twitch away from the words. He watches Sang's gaze flick toward him, just once, as if measuring whether this quiet child is a tool or a weakness. Late one night, after a long meeting, Sang walks past Jean without a touch, without a nod, but he leaves a single instruction hanging in the air to the men behind him. Jean catches every word off their lips and realizes, with a chill, that his father is already deciding what parts of him are useful, and what parts can never be allowed to show. Rain slams against the diner windows so hard it blurs the city into streaks of gray and red. Jean stands just inside the door, clothes damp, shoes squeaking on the tile. He is 8, small and thin, eyes too bright for a kid who looks like he hasn't slept. The bell above the door rattles, but he hears nothing. All he sees is a warm room wrapped in yellow light, the smell of grease and coffee thick in the air, and a row of strangers talking with their hands and mouths in a language he can only half catch. Behind the counter, a black waitress wipes down a stack of plates with quick, tired motions. Her name tag reads, Tasha. But the real story sits in her eyes, sharp, tired, always scanning, like someone who has survived more nights than she cares to count. She spots Jean right away. No coat. No adult. Just a kid standing too still in a doorway where grown men sometimes stumble and looking for trouble. He moves his lips, trying to form the words he's rehearsed in his head, but they fall apart as soon as he sees her watching. His hands twitch toward his pockets, then freeze. Tasha notices the way his gaze keeps dropping to people's mouths, the way his shoulders tense every time someone laughs, as if he expects the sound but never quite finds it. She sets the plate down and walks over, wiping her hands on her apron, steps steady and calm. Instead of talking, she pulls a napkin from the dispenser and clicks a pen. Jin's eyes lock on her fingers as she writes in big, clear letters, "You're safe here." She slides the napkin across the counter to him. He reads it once, then again, and something in his face flickers like a light coming on in a dark room. For the first time that night, his shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. He nods, just barely, and Tasha gives him a soft smile before turning to pour a mug of hot chocolate, steam curling up into the warm air. As she sets it down in front of him, a black SUV rolls to a slow stop outside the diner, headlights cutting through the rain, windows too dark to see inside. If you were sitting in that diner right now, what would you do? Look away from the strange kid in the doorway, or sit beside him and ask his name? The front door flies open so hard it hits the wall, and every fork in the diner freezes halfway to someone's mouth. 3 men in dark suits step in, coats dry despite the storm, eyes sweeping the room in one slow pass that makes the air feel thinner. Jin's fingers tighten around his mug, hot chocolate sloshing against the rim as he watches their lips move in short, clipped sentences meant only for each other. Tasha feels the shift before she even turns. Years of late nights taught her how to read danger in the way men stand, in the way they pretend to be calm while their hands stay too close to their jackets. She wipes her palms on her apron and steps out from behind the counter, placing herself between the suits and the small boy at the end of the bar. Jin's stool squeaks as he tries to make himself smaller, eyes darting from one mouth to the next. One of the men says Jin's name. The shape of it on his lips hits Jin like a slap. He knows these men. Not by face, but by the way they carry themselves, like the men who sit across from his father, who think whispering in another room keeps their secrets safe. Jin's heart races, the world narrowing to their mouths and Tasha's back. Her shoulders square as she tells them the kitchen is closed, her tone flat, eyes steady. They ignore her, their focus locked on the boy behind her. She raises a hand, palm out, and tells them they're in her place now, that they can leave the kid alone or leave in pieces. The biggest one smiles without warmth, lips peeling back just enough for Jean to catch a word that makes his stomach drop. It isn't a threat. It's a promise. They move forward. Tasha doesn't. The first hit comes fast, a hard shove that sends her crashing into a table. Dishes explode on the floor, coffee splashing across the tiles. Customers scramble out of their seats, eyes wide, but no one steps in. Jin's chest heaves as he watches the men surround her, fists rising and falling. He opens his mouth, trying to make a sound, any sound, but nothing comes out. Only air. Only panic. As Tasha hits the ground, blood streaking the white of her apron, one of the men turns his head just enough for Jean to read the next set of words, and what he sees there tells him this is not just about taking him home. It is about erasing the only person who ever told him he was safe. Harsh white light presses down on Tasha as she lies in the hospital bed, face mapped with bruises, one arm wrapped in a cast. Machines beep in steady rhythms, plastic tubes snake from her hand, and the faint smell of disinfectant clings to everything. Her eyelids flutter, heavy, then drag open. For a moment, the room is just shapes and shadows. Then she sees him. Jean sits in the hard plastic chair beside her, both feet pulled up, arms wrapped around his knees. His clothes are the same from the diner, now clean but still holding the memory of rain and broken glass. He stares at her, eyes wide, as if afraid that if he blinks she'll disappear. When he notices her looking, he jerks upright, wiping at his face like he doesn't want her to see he's been crying. He reaches into his backpack and pulls out a small notepad. The first page is crumpled from being folded and unfolded too many times. In shaky letters, he has written, "Thank you." He turns the pad toward her, holding it with both hands. Tasha stares at the words, then at the boy, and something in her chest tightens in a way that has nothing to do with broken ribs. A woman in navy scrubs steps into the room, carrying a chart and a small stack of cards. She moves her lips slowly, exaggerating each word as she tells Jean she is from the hospital's communication team. On the top card, simple hand signs are drawn beside letters and words. She shows him the sign for hello, fingers moving in a small motion near her forehead, then points to the word. Jin's eyes lock on her hands, on the lines, on the shapes. He mimics the motion, awkward at first, then smoother. Tasha follows his gaze, watching as he signs hello, then points at himself, then at her, trying to bridge a gap that has haunted him since the day he was born. The nurse smiles, leaves the cards, and steps back out, letting the door click softly shut. In the quiet that follows, Jean signs, "Thank you," the way the card shows, hand moving from his chin outward. It is small, a little clumsy, but it is soundless speech made visible. Tasha's eyes grow wet as she copies the sign back at him, their hands moving in a shared rhythm that needs no voice. Just as a fragile peace settles over the room, a shadow passes across the frosted glass window in the door. A tall figure in a dark coat stops outside, the outline of his face sharp even through the blur, and Jean feels a chill crawl up his spine as he realizes someone has finally found where Tasha is hiding. The door swings open, and Sang steps into the hospital room like he owns the air itself. His coat is dry, his shoes silent on the linoleum, but the tension around him feels sharp enough to cut. Nurses in the hallway slow down when they see him, eyes dropping, feet speeding up. Jean stiffens in his chair beside Tasha's bed, fingers gripping the armrest until his knuckles turn white. Sang's gaze lands on Tasha first. He takes in the bruises, the cast, the way she still manages to sit up a little straighter when she realizes who he is. Then his eyes slide to Jean. There is no smile. No relief. Just a calculation, like he's counting what this boy has cost him. He moves his lips, saying Jin's full name with a sharp edge that makes the boy's shoulders jerk. Jean reads every word, "You're coming home. Now." Tasha swings her legs over the side of the bed, wincing as her feet touch the floor. She tells him the kid is safe here, that he doesn't need to be dragged back into whatever world sent those men to her diner. Sang doesn't even bother looking at her when he answers. His mouth forms one word that Jean knows too well, mine. That word has followed him his whole life like a chain. A hospital security guard hovers at the doorway, clearly unsure whether to step in. Sang pulls a folder from his coat and hands it over, lips moving slowly as he explains that he is Jin's father, that he has legal custody, that this woman is only making things harder. The guard glances at the papers, at Tasha, at Jin's wide eyes. His body shifts towards Sang's side. Power has a way of bending people without raising a hand. On the ride back to the house, Jean sits in the back of the black car, city lights flashing across his face. Sang talks to the driver, to the man in the front seat, words low and clipped. Jean reads them all in the rearview mirror. Stricter school, no more trips alone, no more diners, no more strangers. At home, gates close behind them with finality. Cameras blink from every corner. From that night, Jean never walks a hallway without feeling watched, every step weighed against rules he did not write. Before this story goes any further, ask yourself this: if you were in Jin's place, would you run from that house the first chance you got, or stay and try to outsmart the man who thinks he owns you? Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what Jean does next, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might help someone else see their own story in his. The text hits Tasha's borrowed phone at 3 in the morning, a single line from a number she doesn't recognize. They're moving him soon. Her heart jumps, pain flaring along her ribs as she pushes herself upright in the narrow hospital bed. The room is dark except for the glow from the monitor. She stares at the message, then at the door, feeling every second slide past like sand. By noon, she is signing herself out against medical advice. A nurse argues, points to charts, reminds her about bruised organs and healing bones, but Tasha just smiles with cracked lips and tells her she has someone she refuses to lose. Outside, cold air bites at her cheeks as she steps to the curb. A gray sedan pulls up, driven by a woman with tight braids and eyes just as sharp, Keisha, an old friend from a neighborhood where they both learned you either build a crew or get swallowed by someone else's. In the back seat, two more faces wait, Dre, who now runs a boxing gym that doubles as a safe space for kids, and Malik, who can find things online most people don't want found. They don't ask many questions. Tasha has paid their hospital bills, bailed out cousins, and covered rent when the streets went silent. Now they lean in as she lays it out: powerful man, scared boy, private school with high walls and locked gates. Malik flips open a laptop, fingers flying over the keys. Within minutes he has the school's address, security layout, and the exact time a black car is scheduled to arrive with a VIP student. Dre cracks his knuckles, already mapping entrances and exits in his head. Keisha adjusts the rearview mirror and tells Tasha they have one shot to get this right before the city swallows the kid whole. The countdown starts the moment they pull away from the curb. As the sedan merges into traffic, Tasha leans her head back and closes her eyes, replaying Jin's clumsy, thank you sign in her mind. She refuses to let that be the last thing he ever says to her. Somewhere across town, Jin is packing a bag he didn't choose, under cameras he didn't ask for, thinking the door in front of him leads to a future already decided. If you were riding in that car with Tasha right now, would you be the one on the laptop, the one watching the streets, or the one walking through the front door first? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss how this crew moves. And tell us in the comments which role you'd play. Your answer might surprise even you. The black SUV slows to a stop in front of the private school's stone archway, gates towering above like judgment. Jin sits in the back seat, uniform stiff on his shoulders, eyes locked on the building. He reads the headmaster's welcome speech straight off the man's lips as he stands on the steps, rehearsed words about opportunity and safety, none of which reach Jin's ears or his trust. Before the driver can open Jin's door, a gray sedan rolls up hard enough to make nearby parents turn their heads. Keisha kills the engine, and Tasha steps out, still wrapped in bandages, moving like every step hurts but nothing on earth will stop her. Dre flanks her on one side, Malik on the other. They walk straight toward the SUV, ignoring the security guard who shouts for them to step back. Jin's hand freezes on the door handle when he sees her. Sang appears from the far side of the car, surprise flashing across his face for just a second before it hardens. His lips form Tasha's name like an accusation. She does not slow down. Instead, she plants herself between the open car door and the man who thinks he can seal Jin's future with a signature. The guard reaches for his radio. Parents pull their kids closer. Eyes stack up like a wall. Tasha lifts her chin and tells Sang, clear and loud, that he is not taking this boy anywhere she cannot reach him. She points to Jin, voice shaking but steady, and announces for everyone within sight to catch from her mouth, "That's my little brother." Gasps ripple through the crowd. The headmaster blinks. The guard hesitates. Sang's eyes narrow, trying to measure the damage of that claim. For Jin, the words hit like a lightning strike. Brother. He searches her face, reading every movement of her mouth, every line around her eyes. The world tilts. He has never heard anyone stake a claim on him like that, not to own him, but to stand with him. Sang calls it a lie, lips twisting around the word with fury. But now there are too many witnesses, too many phones raised, too many people watching a powerful man try to drag a family member away from someone who clearly loves him. Jin steps out of the car on his own, feet touching the ground with a choice that cannot be undone. He moves to stand beside Tasha, close enough that their shoulders almost brush. Sang stares at them both, jaw tight, eyes burning with the knowledge that this scene can't be cleaned up by his usual methods, not without leaving marks the whole city will see. As security hovers, unsure which way to turn, Jin lifts his hands, ready to sign something that will decide where he belongs. Jin signs one simple sentence, each motion clear enough for anyone nearby who understands to read it. I stay with her. His fingers tremble, but his eyes don't waver. Tasha watches his hands, then his face, and for a second the chaos around them blurs. It is just the two of them, one boy who never asked to be born into power, and one woman who refuses to see him swallowed by it. Sang's chest rises and falls, anger fighting with calculation. He could order his men to grab Jean right here, risk cameras, risk witnesses, risk a story he cannot control. Or he can step back and find another way to keep his hand on the board. His mouth shapes cold words about court papers, guardianship, and how long this little show will last. Jean reads everyone, but for once, they don't cage him. Later, in a quiet room above Dre's gym, Tasha sits across from Jean at a small table, the city humming outside the cracked window. She holds a stack of documents Malik pulled from deep corners of the internet, birth records, hospital logs, an old case file with her mother's name on it. The truth sits heavy in her lap. She tells him, slowly, that the brother story was a shield she built in a split second, a lie with one purpose: to give him something even Sang would think twice about ripping away in public. Jin's throat works as he takes this in. His fingers move, asking a question with his hands. So we're not family? Tasha leans forward, eyes locking with his, and signs back with care. Family is who stands with you. Papers or not. Then she says it out loud too, for herself as much as for him. The weight in the room shifts. The lie that started as protection becomes a choice they both make on purpose. If you've ever had someone choose you like that, by action, not just by name, drop a heart in the comments and tell your story. And if you haven't, hit subscribe and keep watching, because stories like this might help you believe that kind of love is still possible. Years later, the sound inside the old brick building on the south side is a mix of bouncing basketballs, soft laughter, and the rustle of crayons on paper. The sign above the door reads, "The Bell House," painted in bright colors by kids who now have a safe place to land. Inside, a little girl with tight curls and a pink hoodie sits at a table alone, eyes fixed on the floor as other children chatter around her. She has hearing aids but keeps them turned low. The world has been too loud for too long. Jean walks over and sits across from her, moving gently so he doesn't startle her. He is taller now, shoulders broader, his face older but his eyes still carrying that same sharp focus. He taps the table lightly until she looks up. Then, without a word, he signs slowly, "You're safe here." The same message that once slid across a napkin in a rain-soaked diner now hangs in the air between his hands and the girl's wide eyes. She hesitates, then copies the motion with unsure fingers. Jean grins and nods encouragement. On the wall behind them are flyers in both print and sign, ads for free art classes, legal help, and night programs funded by a foundation with his last name on it. Sang's empire of fear has faded into rumors and old newspaper clippings, while Jin's name now shows up beside community centers and outreach projects all across the city. Tasha, standing in the doorway to her office, watches the scene with pride, her own scars long healed, her heart still wide open. As the girl's shoulders relax, other kids gather around, some signing, some talking, all making space for her at the table. A camera crew setting up in the corner captures a few seconds of the moment for a local news piece about the shelter. But the real story lives in these simple gestures. A boy who once sat alone in a hospital room now teaching another child that silence does not mean being unseen. If this ending moved you, don't let it stop here. Hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share this story with someone who needs hope tonight. Then head to the comments and tell what home means to you. Your words might be the spark that helps a stranger hold on one more day.